Hello, and welcome to Eastern Roman History. This video is part of Project Ukraine. Many other YouTube channels have banded together to explore its history and disabuse any notion that Ukraine did not have a history prior to AD 1991. Once you have watched this video, please do check out the rest of the playlist. And now, on to the Principality of Theodoro. The history of the Principality of Theodoro, in many respects, finds its origin in the arrival of the Goths in the Crimea. The Goths arrived in the Crimea in the 3rd century AD, invading and occupying the Roman client state of the Bosporan kingdom. Though the Goths were finally defeated by Aurelian, ending their threat to the Roman Empire, they remained in the Crimea. In 325, at the First Ecumenical Council, Christian bishops from Gothia and Bosporan were present. After AD 362, the Bosporan kingdom had completely fallen to the Goths. The Goths eventually Hellenized and adopted Orthodox Christianity. It was also a very heterogeneous country. Gothia was ostensibly held by the Eastern Roman Empire and often fell under the influence of many steppe peoples, such as the Khazars and Huns. The region of Gothia seceded from the Eastern Roman Empire between 1192 and 1198, in the face of the empire's decline. When the Empire of Trebizonde arose under Alexios and David Grand Komnenos, Gothia had already been incorporated as a vital province of their empire by 1205 to 1206. The Komnenoi had the ability to block trade between the Kipchaks and Rus and Asia Minor because they controlled both sides of the Black Sea. In 1223, Hetum, the Seljuk governor of Sinope, incarcerated a ship carrying the tribute from Gothia to Trebizonde and imprisoned its archon and crew, who were on board. The Turks then proceeded to raid Gothia and plundered the area. Andronicus I Guidon sent his fleet and successfully forced the governor of Sinope to return his prisoners, the ship, its crew, the tribute, and loot from Gothia. From this event, we learn that Trebizonde appointed an archon over Gothia, and they paid an annual tribute, or taxes, to the emperor in Trebizonde. In 1237 to 1238, the Mongols attacked the Crimea during the Mongol conquest of Russia, and devastated Gothia. The Mongols established themselves in the plain of Crimea, while the Goths maintained control of the highlands and coastline towards the south. As a result of the Mongol invasion, Gothia was forced to pay tribute to them. In 1261, the Trapezontine hold over the Black Sea was threatened by the arrival of the Italian merchant republics. This situation arose due to Michael VIII Palaeologus' Treaty of Nymphaeon with the Genoese. It stated that the Black Sea was to be closed to all foreign merchants except Genoa and Pisa, Michael's allies. In 1265, Michael VIII broke the Treaty of Nymphaeon and allowed the Venetians to enter the Black Sea, giving Genoa competition. In 1266, the Genoese established their chief Crimean colony of Kaffa, which rapidly grew to become the main trading port of the Crimea. The late 13th century left Gothia in a very complicated situation, with the two rival Italian merchant republics and the Tartars all vying for control of the area. Meanwhile, Gothia maintained its nominal allegiance to the Emperor of Trebizonde. However, the Tartars exerted the greatest influence in the peninsula, and in time their language, customs, and manners were adopted by the Goths, something noted by George Pachymeres and Ibn Battuta. We do not know when exactly the Principality of Theodoro became an independent state. Its earliest mention was by Theodore Spandounes, who says that Andronicus III Palaeologus came into conflict with the Prince of Gothia, Bulgaria, and Serbia. Further details about Theodoro's independence are unknown. In circa 1340, the Genoese conquered Cimbolon, modern Balaclava, from Theodoro. A contemporary, Martin Bronewski, says the Genoese met little resistance from the proud, careless, quarrelling Greek princes. They were probably fighting a civil war. In 1346, the Crimea was visited by the Black Death, and Theodoro was also afflicted by the plague. In 1361 to 1362, the Grand Prince of Lithuania, Ulgerd, fought the Crimean Tartars and defeated them at the battle at the Blue Waters. He fought 3 Khans, Kadlubak, Kachibai, and Demetrius. Another source mentions the Monlupian Tartars, probably a distortion of Mangup, the capital of the principality. Thus, the third monarch defeated by the Lithuanians was Demetrius, Prince of Theodoro. The mistake for the Goths as Tartars can be explained by the Tartarization of Gothia in the 13th century. In the same year, the Hecatonarches of Theodoro, Cuitani, possibly a city prefect, or perhaps the prince himself, built a tower in the capital. Prince Demetrius was succeeded by his son Basil at an unknown date. Basil's reign remains completely obscure, however. Prince Basil was succeeded by Stephen. In 1387, after a conflict, the Genoese made treaties with the Tartars, where the whole of maritime Gothia was ceded to the Genoese. In 1391, Prince Stephen with his son Gregory emigrated to Russia and founded a monastery named Simonov. It is speculated that Stephen may have left due to the loss of maritime Gothia to the Genoese. The dynasty that ruled Theodoro was the Kovra family, based on Stephen's surname. Translated from Russian, this means Gabrades. Thus, the princes of Theodoro were the Gabrades family. In September 1395, Tamerlane invaded the Crimea. Matthew of Khazaria, the Hieronymarch, on a visit to Theodoro, wrote a poem to commemorate the event. The poem starts off with a description of Matthew's journey and his admiration for Theodoro. He then met a man who was the personification of Theodoro. Matthew of Khazaria, the story of the city of Theodoros by a simple and most humble monk, Matthew. O most marvellous city, called gift of God, who was thy supreme and wonderful builder, who erected moats, mountain passes, heights, most marvellous natural wells, without lime, bricks, or hewn marble, without architects, workers, or masons, without large quadrangular stones, without guards, without crowds of people, carts and wood, without imperial command, and without cost. The high walls which surround thee, high above the ground, and are well seen by land and by sea. How hast thou sweet crystal wells, meadows, plains, hills, and ravines. Thou art not a small city, but a megapolis, far from Constantinople. Marvel of marvels, thy creation amazes me. Theodoro. Thou admirest my simple construction, but it is very easy for the artificer, he who established the heaven and founded the earth, the glorious architect, the all-wise artificer who first completed the roof, and then established the ground, who lighted the heaven with beauty of the stars, and filled the sun and the moon with light, who adorned the earth with most various flowers, mountains and plants, who brought forth wells, seas and rivers from the depth of the abyss, who created everything by word, without material or instruments, without cost. He who is omnipresent and fills everything, he erected my structure, O stranger. Thou hast well answered me, and I thank thee. I see magnificent temples, beautiful palaces, marvellous many-coloured sculptures on the ground, and above columns and painted sepulchres. But why art thou deserted and empty? Even if the land of Khazaria had no houses, it would be fitting, O all-delighted one, that thou shouldest be inhabited. Weeping from the depth of my soul, I speak from mournful heart. I see thou art a wise, intelligent, and sagacious stranger, but clothed in tatters, wandering alone. I see thou wearest a poor and sad garment. I can tell thee of my many losses, wars, horrors, battles, of peoples who surrounded me for 7 years, and numberless armies of the Hagarenes, massacres, and fears of besieged and besiegers, raids and ambushes, neighing of horses, inside the people lamenting and weeping, enduring the 9th year, destitute of food, children, women, and men lamenting. They suffered so from the violence of famine that they ate asses, dogs, weasels. How driven to despair they surrendered me. O stranger, I should be overcome with lamentations and wailings, and I should make thee also sob and weep. But before thou succumbest, O stranger, and art overwhelmed, direct thy mind in the right way, glorifying God. I am filled with sorrow, but coming to my right mind, I laud the Creator, who is the just judge and whose judgments are right. This happened to me through the ire of God, on account of many iniquities committed by the men of that time. From Matthew's account, Tamerlane devastated much of Theodoro, and then left to force besiege Mangup for 9 years, from 1395 to 1404. During that siege, the inhabitants suffered a deadly famine. Once Tamerlane's forces left, Mangup was rebuilt by Theodoro's greatest ruler, Alexios Gabrades. Alexios rebuilt Mangup, as well as a new palace, castle, and church to St. Constantine and Helena. He also built Calamita to give Theodoro access to the sea and provide a rival port to Kaffa. Alexios's ultimate ambition was to conquer the maritime provinces, the key to which was the port of Cembalo, or Balaclava. He declared war in 1422 and besieged Balaclava. Alexios captured the port, but lost it to a Genoese counterattack. In 1424, Theodoro signed a peace treaty with the Genoese, ending the conflict. In 1425, Prince Alexios adopted the title of Prince of Theodoro and the Maritime Provinces, which was used by his successors. In 1426, Maria of Gothia married David Grand Komnenos, the last emperor of Trebizonde. In 1432, Alexios concluded an alliance with the Venetians and declared war on the Genoese the following year. A revolt in Balaclava allowed Alexios to occupy the city. The Goths held Balaclava until 1434, when the Genoese retook the city. The war continued until 1441, when finally Alexios and the Genoese concluded a peace treaty. Alexios died sometime between 1444 and April 1447. In a legendary account, Alexios was killed during another attack against Balaclava. Alexios was supposed to be succeeded by his elder son John, but under obscure circumstances he did not take the throne, and instead his brother Olobai became prince. The Crimean Tartars had to be involved, and one of their officials acted as ruler during the interregnum. Olobai remained an enemy of Genoa and a friend to the Tartars. In 1446 to 1447, the Ottoman Sultan, Murad II, sent ships to ravage Trebizonde and then the coast of Gothia, taking many prisoners. In 1447, John IV of Trebizonde sent his brother David to Gothia with his wife, probably to form an alliance against the Genoese. Hostile actions were reported against the Genoese by Trebizonde, Sinope, Theodoro, and the Prince of Kastamuni, but we lack specifics. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 caused a fundamental diplomatic shift in the Crimea. Theodoro and Kaffa, now under the governorship of the Bank of St. George, started courting good relations, though local incidents continued to flare up. However, Theodoro's suzerain, the Crimean Tartars, drew closer to the Ottomans. In 1458, Olobai died and was succeeded by his son Isaac. In 1461, Trebizonde fell to the Ottoman Turks. In 1471, Isaac visited Kaffa to discuss their mutual defence against the Turks. The mission was successful, and 2 chests of projectiles were sent to Mangup in good faith. Isaac searched for allies. He married his sister, Maria of Mangup, to Stephen the Great of Moldavia, and began negotiations with Ivan III of Muscovy for a royal marriage. In the first half of 1475, Stephen the Great supported Alexander Gabrades to take over from Isaac. With a guard of 300 Wallachians, Alexander successfully landed in Kalamita and within 3 days deposed and executed Isaac and took over Theodoro. On the 6th of June, 1475, Kaffa fell to the Ottoman Turks. Some of the Genoese officials and refugees fled to Theodoro and would participate in its defence. After their success at Kaffa, the Turks, under the command of the Grand Vizier Achmet Pasha, invaded Theodoro and besieged Mangup. Prince Alexander was in command of the defence. They successfully defeated 5 different assaults on the city by the Ottomans. Then, the Turks decided to blockade the city, and after 3 months, the defenders started to suffer from famine. In December 1475, the bulk of the Turkish army departed, and the defenders sallied out to attack the remaining forces. However, it was a trick, and the Goths were trapped and destroyed. Prince Alexander agreed to surrender if the lives of him and his people were spared, and their property unharmed. Alexander was brought to Constantinople, and at some point after the 20th of May 1476 was executed along with other Gothic notables. Alexander's wife and daughters entered Mehmed II's harem, and Alexander's son was forced to become a Turk. The Turks quickly conquered the rest of Theodoro, and a church in Mangup was converted into a mosque. In 1481, a Russian prayer commemorated Kaffa and Mangup. O brave and valiant sons of Russia, endeavour to preserve your country, the Russian land, from the pagans. Do not spare your lives. May your eyes never see the destruction of your homes, the slaughter of your children, and the violation of your wives and daughters in the way other great and glorious lands have suffered from the Turks. These lands are called Bulgarians and Serbians, Greeks and Trebizonde, Morea, Albania, Croatia, Bosnia, Mangup, and Kaffa, and many others. Thus in December 1475, the Principality of Theodoro came to an end. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe, and thank you very much to my generous patrons. This has been a part of Project Ukraine, an initiative to explore the history of this land. If you want to find out more, please watch the other videos in this series, and this has been Eastern Roman History.